what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. All right, what's up, world? Welcome to another edition of I Mix What I Like Live. I'm Jared Ball. Again, happy to be here with you. As usual, please make sure you are already subscribed to imixwhatilike.org so you just are up to date with everything that is ongoing with the work I and my colleagues and comrades are involved in. Please like, share, and subscribe and join this channel. It is expanding, as you may have already noticed, and it's going to ever expand beyond where we are already, with a big announcement coming on Dr. Huey P. Newton's birthday this month on the 17th, and more to come. So please join. It will not be in vain at all. And yeah. I hope you all did check out and by now, and if not, please do, the inaugural launch of The Last Dope Intellectual featuring Dr. Sharice Burden-Stelly, which launched last night. It was dope. It was great. It is also going to be hosted and aired on this channel, which again is going to continue to expand. So when you join this channel, it's not just supporting I Mix What I Like Live. It's going to be, again, more to come. All right, but I wanted to get to this at least very quickly this morning because I thought about it the other day, and then when our guest yesterday unfortunately canceled at the last minute, I figured I would take the time and try to put this together because I noticed something that to me is extremely revelatory, and I'll admit I'm frustrated. And this morning, as excited as I am to have caught back up to it, I don't know why it didn't make it from my notes to the book, and I don't know why it didn't make it from my notes to this platform or elsewhere more overtly. But I guess as you know. The dualities and the dialectics and contradictions exist with some unfortunate representation that I was alerted to yesterday or the day before. Some goodness has come out of it. So I'm excited to share that with you all this morning who are here live, and thank you for joining me, and those who will see this later, welcome and enjoy as well. All right, so let me get to some of this very quickly because I do have these Google alerts still set on buying power as a phrase. I still get all of these updates as to how the phrase is being carried in popularly, or at least, you know, referenced on the web or in publications. And I'll remind everybody again, as I mentioned in the book, but I'll just emphasize here, buying power is a marketing and advertising phrase meant to help match advertisers with the right media outlets so that they can attract the right audience, target their media, target their ad to the right audience, and to help corporate commercial media, black, white, or other, attract that corporate revenue. So by, again, touting the buying power of any segment, because this is applied again to any segment of the population, from any member of the demographic, to municipalities, to governments, the buying power of everyone is assessed. And in this case, so that, again, marketers can figure out how to spend, best spend the roughly $500 billion they're spending every year, flooding commercial media overtly and covertly with their messaging in ways that are specifically designed to target the specific variant of the audience that they're trying to reach. So my focus has always been on the Black population in particular, because when it comes to Black America, buying power is targeted with a particular viciousness and perniciousness, and that is meant to inhibit radical analysis, organization, and movement building, which is the only real power that we have. So that's the quick summary for that. So I get this new Google alert, one alerting me to the expansion of a project that I missed that was launched just as I was going to press with my book last year by the Nielsen Group, who I do talk about in the book, obviously. Well, maybe not, obviously. But in July of 2019, Nielsen launched a podcast, a buying power podcast, which at the end of last year, and I did miss this announcement, at the end of last year in October, signed a new deal with NPR. So previously, I've been critical of NPR, National Public Radio, and the role it plays in the national media landscape, and have even compared it to Radio Alger. What Fanon said of Radio Alger in France and Algeria, I was arguing is the case here with NPR in the United States and Black America. But the point being, and that's another conversation we can come back to maybe another time. But the point here is that Nielsen makes this arrangement with NPR. Now, what is the not Black Buying Power? What is the Buying Power podcast that Nielsen is, not only has launched, but is expanding? As a new subscriber to Nielsen's service, NPR, as any new subscriber will have access to a podcast, to podcast insights spanning 18 genres that can be cross-referenced against massive category of consumer purchase behavior patterns and service usage. Currently counting over 12 major podcast companies as subscribers, Nielsen's podcast buying power service allows clients to profile shows using program titles collected from subscribers in order to connect specific types of listeners with particular advertisers and specific program level insights. At last count, Nielsen's podcast buying power featured over 150 of the largest podcast programs in its database. So again, what are they saying here? They're not doing a podcast to help certainly Black people or others understand their economic condition, material inequality, racial wealth and income, economic divides. That's not the point. The podcast exists, as they were just quickly explaining, to help advertisers find podcasts best suited for their advertising. So again, that leads to a whole other kind of conversation. Why is National Public Radio, which is, to the extent you should use national, its title anymore, not so much public as it's becoming increasingly private, but why is it looking to spend advertising revenue on certain podcasts? And why would it subscribe to this service to best find out how to find podcasts to fund to serve? Now, again, something I allude to that I'll talk a little bit about in the buying power myth of Black buying power, myth and propaganda of Black buying power, is sort of the media landscape context, including its relationship to advertisers and state political apparatuses and political goals. So in other words, it could be asked or should be asked and critiqued and investigated further. What is the impact of all of this what beyond what I've said, and certainly many others, and maybe not enough, have said about what is the overall impact on the media landscape, including what is often labeled and dismissed as entertainment, when there is these hundreds of billions of dollars in ad revenue flooding these environments? What is its impact on news, analysis, popularity, pop culture, et cetera? That is a lot of what should be discussed here. But in terms of this conversation, I think it's just important to point out that Nielsen has created a podcast to help further bridge this relationship between advertisers and the specific audiences they're looking to reach, and the specific media reaching those audiences. Buying power, again, is not anything other than meant to help assess where those ad revenue dollars should go, and in this case specifically to what media they should go. And then what actually, I'll just show you this very quickly. What actually brought let's see, my attention to this was this most recent announcement of the, again, increasing expansion of this Nielsen podcast platform, where they just inked a new deal. Agencies for podcast buying service was just announced. Nielsen announced that Active International, Ad Results Media, and Oxford Road are now subscribers to Nielsen's podcast buying power service. So again, more marketers, more probably public relations firms, et cetera, are looking to find ways to target their stuff. Now, so that's one part of what I wanted to share today, in part to because again, before we had these platforms, when I was tracking this, I would have just added this to the blog that I had been keeping for years, tracking this to point out that this is how the myth permeates and is distributed, and for what it the purpose it is actually meant to serve. And then you can start to see how it gets turned into something else. And that's where I want to go next, because this, of course, being Black History Month, we not only have this as a wonderful opportunity to revisit some lost histories, or as Arthur Schomburg or Arturo Schomburg said to Dr. John Henry Clark, to find the missing pages of world history. But it's also a time for those with whom I might disagree, or some might characterize as our political enemies, to make use of the same, for the same thing. And by the way, if you go and check out the inaugural edition of Dr. CBS's The Last Dope Intellectual, she talks about some of this history in terms of William Patterson and his critique of what has happened, or what had happened already to this so-called Negro History Week and Month back in 1954, where he talks about the savages that she talks about. She quotes the savages that are running our society. But most recently, again, because I get these alerts, I was alerted to this. The buying power phrase was brought up again in this lecture by Maggie Anderson, and I know many are familiar with Maggie Anderson and her husband because of the Our Black Year book, where they talked about spending a year buying only from Black-owned businesses, and what power this is meant to, and that actually deserves its own more specific critique. And actually, if you read my book, the critique of it is there without being specific to it. And even in some of these other videos that I've put up since the book has come out, talking about how this myth permeates, I've already shown the flaws in that argument. So it may be an interesting experiment for one upper middle class Black bourgeois family. But in terms of redistributing wealth to the point that the entire Black community overturns its inequality, well, that's an entirely different discussion. Now, and on the one hand, if you want to say buy Black and support Black because you want to support and help Black people, that's great. If you then say support Black, buy Black because this is the pathway to liberation, that's where I think we need to have an intervention, so to speak, and that's where I certainly want to try to intervene, because that's an entirely different argument. And it's entirely false. Now, the specific point here, and this is where Dr. King gets brought in, because of course she's giving the Dr. King lecture, annual commemorative lecture at Emory University, her alma mater. I did watch some of it, and then I read even more of the script and more about it. And this is where I found what is both this contradictory moment of the very revealing piece that it even hurts more to say that I had already seen and made note of, but did not end up in my book for however many, whatever reasons. And it's kind of frustrating because this would have been so helpful, but we'll at least get to it here. Good gracious. This is why you got to work in teams, really, because some of us are just not these individual heavy hitters that can get everything right when we work by ourselves so much. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. But anyway, the real point I want to get to here. So anyway, I just want to point out, so she gives this lecture, and then I want to show you the specific point that she makes in the lecture, and that is extremely revealing. That so in this summary of her lecture here, because I also got this in my alerts as well, Author Maggie Anderson sheds light on MLK and Black-owned business. Now, this is okay. So this is part of the rebranding that I do talk a little bit about in my book. That historical figures are taken in, are cherry picked in isolation, out of, you know, in a vacuum, out of their context, and often misquoted, misreferenced, misinterpreted for the very, very Black capitalist encouraged purpose of promoting Black entrepreneurialism as a pathway to Black liberation. Again, as I talk about it, you know, my broader argument is that the broader politics of this is to draw us away from the radical analyses and movement power that we actually have. Okay, so in this case, Dr. King is evoked to talk about how, well, let's just go to where, as she says, oh, wait. Let's see. As she says, Anderson added that people didn't hear King say buy Black because he didn't have to. The Black businesses were right there funding his fight, allowing his audacity, she said. He didn't have to build them up. They built King up. We had economic unity. We were united, and united we always have more power than pain. End quote. Now, this is part of, again, this massive problem that we have, the rebranding of Dr. King out of his context, and in this case, wildly inaccurately, as I'm about to show you. But for the purposes of trying to rebrand the struggle as if it was somehow Black entrepreneurs and businesses that were funding and driving the civil rights movement, and not something that King would aggressively come back to critique himself. Now, please, you know, go back if you don't want to see many other things. Please go back and check the video I did last month, specifically about Dr. King and his rebranding, where I go through some of the in more detail. And I'll link to it here in the description for this one, but where I go in more detail to you know, and show you the rebranding in the press and how, as he became more overtly radical and critical of the Black bourgeoisie and white liberals and Black capitalism and capitalism in general, he became more distanced and marginalized from the civil rights struggle, from the mainstream press, and ultimately from the state, who was happy to promote his being a threat to national security repeatedly, which of course paves the way for him to be assassinated and have that assassination rebranded as something you know, almost cartoonish and unrecognizable. But that's a whole other, you know, obviously discussion as well. Anyway, but you can go back to the video for some of that. But here, my point would only be, and as I'll show you, what I have just been, for whatever reasons, neglecting to reintroduce or into newer work or newer presentations and discussions of this, is is again how this is entirely an intentional misrepresentation. I have to think, well, let me not say I don't know that it's intentional, but it is a misrepresentation, a misinterpretation of Dr. King, and it is meant to feed the bias of Black business and entrepreneurialism being the pathway. By the way, in that lecture, Maggie Anderson goes on to talk about Du Bois in the same context as well. Again, rebranding the most radical anti-capitalist critics of the some of the more prominently known, at least, anti-capitalist Black critics in the modern era as people who supported Black business and entrepreneurialism and capitalism as a pathway to liberation. And it's really frustrating and never mind inaccurate. So again, she's saying he never said. Again, remember, we didn't hear it. She's saying, and I want to just read that again because to properly set up what I want to show you. She's saying again, people didn't hear King say buy Black because he didn't have to, because those businesses were already right there funding his fight, allowing his audacity. Okay, that's deep. It wasn't the movement. It wasn't even, you know, the community or the church or the broader struggles or anything else. It wasn't the other organizations, the other elements of the struggle. It wasn't anything else. It was Black businesses allowing his audacity. Okay. But she says, again, he did not say, we didn't hear King say buy black because he didn't have to, she says. Well, in fact, he did say buy black. And he said it right here in his last full-length book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? Where he says, and honestly, it just required me going back and putting in the search in the Kindle piece to be reminded of this. However much we pool, again, however much we pool our resources, Dr. King wrote, and buy black, this cannot create the multiplicity of new jobs and provide the number of low-cost houses that will lift the Negro out of the economic depression caused by centuries of deprivation. Neither can our resources supply quality integrated education. All of this requires billions of dollars, which only an alliance of liberal labor civil rights forces can stimulate. In short, the Negroes' problem cannot be solved unless the whole of American society takes a new turn toward greater economic justice, end quote. There's so much demonstration I feel like getting into right now that would be inappropriate. But that's I mean, if that's not checkmate, enough already. Okay. So again, you don't have to agree with him. You don't have to agree with me, but I think it has to stop that this representation that business and buying black is a solution. And certainly if you want to argue that buying black is a solution, you would have to explain how Dr. King was wrong rather than rebrand him and literally claim that he didn't say buy black because he didn't have to, when in fact he did say buy black. And I'm going to read it again, because what he said about buying black was, however much we pool our resources and buy black, this cannot create the multiplicity of new jobs and provide the number of low-cost houses that will lift the Negro out of the economic depression caused by centuries of deprivation. Neither can our resources supply quality integrated education. All of this requires billions of dollars, which only an alliance of liberal labor civil rights forces can stimulate. In short, the Negro's problem cannot be solved unless the whole of American society takes a new turn towards greater economic justice. That's page 51 of the Kindle edition of Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., published in 1967. And I think says everything, which is again why, to a lesser extent, in an equally unrevolutionary call, the argument that I put forward in the Buying Power book is for a redistribution of the GDP, the $20 trillion GDP that is generated in this country every year, before the COVID crisis and likely after the COVID crisis and even during, because even though we can't consume due to loss of jobs, loss of income, et cetera, shutting down of businesses, et cetera, the elite have, through HOPE and CARES Acts, et cetera, and so forth, redistributed trillions of dollars upwards to themselves. And as I talked about in the previous video also, for over the last decade or so, had redistributed about that much, $19 trillion upwards to themselves through public policy and grift, really, but public policy. So the same thing can be done and must be argued for this is an unrevolutionary argument. If you want a revolution, then that's George Jackson, and that's another conversation not suitable for this platform. But my book argues a very unrevolutionary response, as did Dr. King there, a very unrevolutionary response, simply saying accurately, buying black capitalism in and of itself cannot close these gaps and divides. Only massive distribution with the federal government involved can do that. And that's what the elite have known, which is why they use the federal government to redistribute the wealth we all create for them, to themselves. And for us, if we want to follow the legacies of King and Du Bois, certainly, then our argument has to be at the surface level, at a minimum, public policy that redistributes the wealth that we all help to create back to everyone else, so there's this level of inequality doesn't exist. And people who keep running around here draped in their blackness or in their gender or in their sexuality or in their whatever, and claiming and misrepresenting all of these histories for big time paychecks and speaking gigs, they must be checked. They must be challenged. They must be critiqued. And that's it. Okay, so that's it. Thank you. Thank you, Phil, for becoming a new member. Thank you, Elgin, for the super chat. Definitely appreciate that. Peace to you as well. Yeah, the Dr. CBS John was dope. Haven't heard that word in a minute. Thank you for that. No, you're only late to this because I was late. I mean, I didn't even, I was rushing to put this together. We had some things scheduled, they fell through, and then to work within the household family schedule today, this was the only time I had to do it. And once I revisited all that, I just wanted to. I'm not sure if the Coke Industries are a major contributor to NPR at this point, but they get so much Archer Daniel Midland. I mean, they get so much stuff from the corporate world that it wouldn't surprise me. And that, in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Coke was, and in fact, because Coke is almost behind and involved with everything. I mean, to put a twist on that classic Chappelle joint, Coke is a hell of a drug. You know what I'm saying? And they're drugging us to death. Anyway, let's see. Commented MLK wrote a critique of the way Ralph Bunche was held up by many in the media aspiration. Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, Black business channels on YouTube all the time. Absolutely. Thank you very much. And thank you, Derek, for your support of the channel. Koch brothers financially contributed Sunni purchase economic. Wow, that's not surprising either. Yeah, so anyway, I think I've seen, I appreciate you all coming through. Yeah, I think that, I'm not surprised about that though, at all. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there real quick. Please do go back and check out The Last Dope Intellectual, because I think what Dr. CBS had to say about Black History Month and its co-optation, I think she made reference to all the McDonald's shakes that have been taught. I mean, that's ultimately what's happening here. It's even more insidious, and because it's a Black woman, draped in Black pride at in a largely Black town in Atlanta, talking about talking about Atlanta's own Dr. King in a way that's very very McDonald's milkshake like. And that's really unfortunate. When Dr. King was assassinated because he gave his life to an ever radicalizing politics that he knew were right and true, and he is being misrepresented. So anyway, I hope this helps even a little bit. Thank you all very much for checking this out. Please come back. We got a lot more coming up on Monday and throughout the week. We have events coming with the Black Studies Matters Symposium, all starting on Monday, actually Monday night, where Doctors Keto Swan and Iyeli Ichile and Mark Bolden and Otis Williams, the PGCC, UMass Boston, Bowie State, Morgan State Black Studies Collective is put together an expansive symposium, a series rather, Black Studies Matters. Check that out. The information is on the channel. Please, get your reminder set for those. I mean, got a lot of interesting events coming up actually with that. Of course, the next edition of The Last Dope Intellectual will be back next week, and more is coming. So Please join the channel, support the channel. Thanks to those who already have. And as always, to you, we say peace if you're willing to fight for it. So peace, everybody. Catch you next time. Like Fred Hampton used to say, to you, we say peace if you're willing to fight for it. So peace, everybody. Catch you next time right here on I Mix What I Like Live. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.